Kia ora koutou, welcome to Top Talks, and tonight we have Jessica Hammond, who is our candidate in Ōhāriu. Jessica, how are you?
Kia ora, Geoff. I'm excellent. I'm great. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome.
In my own home.
In your own home.
Talking to you and all the good people out there.
Awesome. How's campaigning going in Ōhāriu?
Well, I mean, it's a little weird at the moment. It's a little weird and quiet, being in level 2. But, as much as, I don't think we needed to extend the election date, I'm going to use that time. I'm going to love that extra time to get out and meet more people once it's possible to do so safely.
Awesome. And for those of you who don't know, we are Top is putting a real effort into Ōhāriu. We're making a real target of it to with the goal of winning it. And so, you've got a great volunteer team there.
It's amazing. I mean, I can't believe that there are people prepared to put their time and effort and money in to do this stuff, for free because they believe in it. It's incredible. They're amazing. They amaze me every day. Come join us.
Yeah. We've got people coming from all over Wellington to volunteer for Jess. And actually, Jess, I think at times you've got people coming from all over the country to volunteer for you.
Yeah. I mean, we've had Naomi come down from Hamilton. We've got the guys from, or the team from Palmerston North. We're planning to come down. We've got some people who were planning to be here on September 19th still going to come because they can help. Incredible. And there are people helping in Australia. You know who you are, has done some research for me. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I mean, it really does. The top really is a movement now, isn't it? And it's this sort of goodwill that warms the cockles of your heart when people get stuck in and help out of the goodness of their own heart. So it's awesome.
It's so cool. And I think, I don't know, surely it feels better to be part of a movement, with all these people. It's just like we run on love, and that's got to be better than running on filthy bribes and stuff. No, not bribes. Well, I mean, we'll see. The serious fraud office will tell us, but
The serious fraud office will tell us.
Yeah, Top runs on love, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Although cash is always good too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cash always helps too. So if you can't get there to help Jessica in person, feel free to donate to her campaign or to Top in general. And we can, I believe you have information on your Facebook page about how people can donate.
Yeah, I will. I'm going to be looking at our budget soon because we've got extra time, which means we can do more things, which is great, but they cost more money. I'm probably going to be asking for more money as Top is in general, because we do need money to reach people. But I've been very upfront about where that money goes. None of it goes to me. It's all for just the stuff that we need to run a campaign.
Hoardings, flyers, letters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Facebook boosting. And so, Jess, I mean, I noticed in, one of the posts you did recently, and because this struck me too, right? This is the amazing thing about getting out and knocking on doors or delivering flyers and that sort of stuff. You wander through some quite affluent suburbs and you come across places that you've never noticed before that most people will just walk past, and start to realize that there are quite big pockets of poverty in New Zealand tucked away from the hidden eye. I just don't think most people realize how much of it there is around, and it's quite eye-opening to see. I mean, did you want to talk about your recent experience as much as you can?
Yeah, I mean, so Ōhāriu is the wealthiest electorate in the country. but it is also quite diverse. There is massive inequality in Ōhāriu. So there's some very, very wealthy people bringing up that average level of income and wealth in Ōhāriu. But door knocking in Tawa, I mean, there are pockets of deprivation all throughout Ōhāriu, but Tawa is probably one of the areas with a bit more deprivation. And as you say, when you're knocking on doors, you you have the experience of going into little places you wouldn't normally see and meeting people you maybe wouldn't normally meet, and some of the stuff, some of the people we talked to, some of the homes we saw, and some of the conversations we had, kind of can't unsee. I wouldn't identify anybody, but like a door we knocked on where a very young looking mum with a bunch of kids came out. The kids were lovely, came out, hi. She was like, don't want to talk. And then we went to the next house. He said, are those kids okay? Because we had the police here and I heard things in the night. And it was horrible, just really horrible. Those sweet little kids, so there's every part of New Zealand has their issues and challenges.
Absolutely. And the vast majority of these people are incredibly resourceful and hardworking and doing their best in trying circumstances.
Under hideous stress. And some of you will have seen like the Johnny video I did about abatement rates. And I met Johnny, like this guy with a 4-year-old son, sole parent, talking about how when his child starts school, he's he might be able to start working, but at the moment he just can't because his abatements are so severe, and I was like, you're him.
It's a real challenge, isn't it? Those sorts of those callbacks, and a lot of people don't understand that I often open these conversations by saying that the people who pay the highest tax rates in this country are beneficiaries, and that always confuses people to start with, because people don't realize that as well as paying tax, they're also having their benefit clawed back. That's what those abatement rates are. And so that adds up to a really high tax rate, often between 80% and sometimes even a bit over 100%. So a lot of these people, we're calling them dole bludgers and wins is constantly prodding them to work, but we're expecting them to work for between $0 and $3 or $4 per hour. And I ask a lot of people, would you get out of bed, make your lunch, take the bus, all for $1, $2, $3, $4 per hour? And the vast majority of people say no. So why do we expect beneficiaries to do it?
And the responses I get are either like, yes, this is what I've been trying to say, this is why it makes no sense for me to work, or people saying, well, work is good. You should work because work is good, and then you wouldn't be, getting money from the government. And and it's like, well, yes, frickin' work is good. Let's make it easier for people to work, for God's sake. If you think work is so damn good, why are you making it so hard for people to work? There's just like this total lack of pragmatism, like that people you just should work. Like as if sort of moralizing at people and yelling at them into doing something that completely is against their interests has ever really worked. Let's just just be practical about this stuff. We can make it easy for people to do things that are good for themselves and good for society. Let's just do it already.
And that's the UBI, folks. So that's
sorry,
we haven't actually mentioned our policy there yet. But the whole idea is give everyone $250 a week, no questions asked, and that gets rid of that welfare trap that Jess is talking about, so that there is always that incentive to work. And yeah, I mean, I think COVID is really showing us the future in that respect. The gig economy has been around for some time, but COVID is really showing that that's only growing and going to become bigger in the future. And this sort of disruption to the workforce is just becoming normal, and more people are getting to experience what a few people have experienced in the past, which is sometimes work there and sometimes work isn't there, and hours can change each week, and at the same time you're trying to negotiate, navigate a Byzantine benefit system at the same time as moving in and out of work constantly. So,
exactly. The benefit system is so complicated for people, and people get into these poverty traps, and we remove really any opportunity for ingenuity to get yourself out. Like, well, maybe I could have a boarder, maybe I could move in with one of my family members, maybe I could, work a little bit here or a little bit there, or, work more in the school holidays and less in term time. And the system just doesn't let people find a way out.
Yeah, you've got to work this amount per week, and if you don't work that amount, yeah, it's crazy. It just doesn't reflect reality. While actually what you just said, Jess, reminded me of another story you told me, and I don't know if you've talked about this online before. And again, obviously, don't mention names, but I believe you were talking to someone who's a teacher aide and is also a parent. Are you able to tell that particular story?
Well, this is the story she wrote to us. This is the one you mean, eh?
Yeah.
And I recorded her letter because she didn't want to be identified. So this teacher aide doesn't get paid in the school holidays, so she has this really lumpy income.
Like all teacher aides are like that. None of them get paid during the school holidays, and they're on minimum wage. They're on minimum wage even at the best of times, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. These people who we need to make schools function get paid a pittance, don't get paid in the holidays, and then the benefit system has sort of stand downs and crap. So they're in this trap as well. But this particular woman had been on benefits before and found the experience of dealing with work and income so traumatizing that she would, but I think her words were something, I'd rather starve than go through those doors again. It's a government that leaves people with trauma when it's supposed to be helping people.
Yeah. And yet, because of her job, effectively, I mean, she is almost forced to go through their doors. What's that? School holidays. There's four terms, so there must be 4 sets of holidays per year, right? But obviously, she just sucks it up and tries to scrimp and save to make it through the school holidays when they come along.
Yeah, exactly. And she was talking about their, several of their family members need. Sorry, are you hearing those dings? I don't know how to turn those off. Never mind. Had a nebulizer which they need to control their asthma, and it died, and they all have to pitch in together, just save every single penny to get one that they can share around the whole family. Ridiculous situation.
Yeah. And of course, the other side to this is, the other side to this isn't just the benefit system, but it is also housing, right? I mean, that is the key driver, the key pressure upon people's incomes, because it is over the last 30 years just sucked up more and more, eaten up, chewed up more and more of people's incomes every year. So that pressure keeps growing and growing. So, obviously that's another big part of the puzzle too.
And we all know that housing is the major driver of poverty. It's the major driver of inequality. And some of you will have seen me get my rant on about this, but you other candidates from other parties out there, I don't want to hear you tell me that poverty is bad and that you care about poverty when you're not prepared to address housing costs, because you do not mean it. You do not care about poverty if you're not prepared to address housing costs.
Yeah, totally. And that actually is quite a nice segue to some questions we've got here, which I can see. We've had one from Alex. With housing affordability, since Ōhāriu has lots of rich homeowners, how do you explain your proposed asset taxes and other relevant policies to get to affordable housing? Yeah, so I mean, obviously, yeah, that is a big challenge, right? I mean, the idea of taxing housing puts off a lot of people. You know, it scares people.
Yeah, it does. And there will, you know, if you look at our incredible tax and UBI calculator and see, you know, see how much better off you will be. Almost everybody, well, the vast majority of people are better off, but a lot of the people who aren't going to be better off live in Ōhāriu. So, you know, that's just a thing. The thing is, though, when you're really comfortable and you're not in that situation where you're having to scrimp and save for every cent, I think you have a bit of the luxury to sort of say, actually, I'm going to do something that's good for the whole country. And, you know, and, you know, I think, you know, we've also got an extremely well educated electorate, a very sort of politically savvy electorate. They're also able to see that, you know, our tax situation, which is the major driver of housing and affordability, is terrible for business because it diverts money away from business and into housing. It creates all sorts of horrible social outcomes. It costs those people. It costs those very wealthy people, and you know, in societal costs and a drain on our economy. And they can understand that. They are voting in their best interests if they vote for Top, even if it's going to make a little bit of an impact on their direct back pocket costs.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the other thing to point out is that we aren't necessarily relying on the asset tax to pay for the UBI. I mean, there's lots of benefits that when you look at experiences overseas, there's lots of benefits that come from the UBI, which show that it really should pay for itself. And in which case, the conversation about asset tax really just becomes about, well, you know, we just want to tax housing the same as other assets. And if we don't need the money from taxing housing, then we can tax housing, because there's three ways that you can do this, right? I mean, at the moment we tax other assets a lot and housing not very much. So there's three ways to solve that problem, because that's the difference in tax rates is what's driving everyone to tax housing, to put their money into housing, and that's what's driving the prices up. So you got three ways you could do this. You could tax housing the same as other assets, or you could tax other assets the same as housing, drop those tax rates. Of course, then the question is, where does the money come from? And then the third option is you do a bit of both. And that's kind of what Germany does effectively. So, you know, that's how I often talk about, you know, to people who sort of go, oh, you want to tax housing? Well, no, we want to tax housing the same as other investments. Do you agree with that? That's a good idea. And most people will sort of go, oh, well, actually, yeah, that seems to make sense. That, you know, that we need to tax all investments the same. Otherwise, you're going to stick all your money in one place. And
it's not hard to use that.
It's not hard to look around and see that as the case. That everyone's putting their money into housing in New Zealand. Here we go. Oh, the questions are really starting to roll in now. Jessica, we've got a lot of people wishing you well.
That's very nice.
Last election, I was happy to use my free ad boost to promote Top and their great policies. I may possibly do it again. Well, thanks, Ferguson. That's great. Another question, from past experience, you get better service from a Chinese takeaway store that don't speak English. They at least do it once and do it right. That's a foreign concept that wins. Okay, that's more of a comment than a question. Question from Campbell: do you have an overarching energy policy that addresses peak oil, the limitations of renewables, and the tight relationship between energy use / emissions and GDP? Do you have an overarching energy policy? Well, this is a pretty mammoth question from Campbell. I mean, what I would say, Campbell, that you know, where the whole energy issue is going to is anyone's bet at the moment. But what I would say is that there's an awful lot that we can do in New Zealand to reduce our energy use, and the two big things I would say there are energy efficiency. That's in our homes and our businesses. So better insulation, better constructed homes, using energy efficient appliances and energy efficient machinery in our businesses makes a big difference. All of that energy efficiency stuff saves us money and reduces energy use at the same time. And the other big thing we can do to reduce energy use is allowing more medium density housing around our public and active transport routes, right? Because if people don't need to live a long way away from all the stuff that they do, then they don't then need to commute in all the time, particularly not by personal automobile, which is the most energy intensive way to get around. And we can greatly reduce transport costs, we can reduce emissions and reduce energy use at the same time. So that's some short stuff some short-term stuff that we should really be focusing on as a country. And I mean, there is quite a big focus up in Ōhāriu on doing exactly that, isn't there, Jessica? Building those medium density developments around the centres that you have there.
Yeah, so the Wellington City Council's plan for how to accommodate the 50 to 70,000 extra people they expect to have living in the northern suburbs, which are in Ōhāriu, really relies on having more, because we can't just sprawl forever, right? So having more medium density housing next to transport hubs. We've got a train line, we've got buses. There are a lot of areas that have a lot of really good potential for having medium density housing. But of course, that is great, and that is something that needs to happen. And people have concerns that go along with that about overcrowding in schools. We have some very crowded schools in Ōhāriu, about our buses in particular not necessarily being very fast and efficient and regular and reliable. So people do feel worried about having more people in the same area, and that's we really need to plan. Like, this is a symptom of short-termism and sort of silos in sort of politics and things, and having that integrated planning approach where, and I mean, credit to the council, looking this far ahead and saying this is what we need for our carbon goals, but also for being able to fit these people in. But we need to make sure we're talking to education, and that we're planning for the transport. I mean, public transport is a funny one. The denser your populations, the better your public transport is. Demand, more demand, more public transport. But maybe we can front load some of the public transport. Before.
Well, it takes investment, right? And I think this is the trouble that local authorities have, is because they are, as you say, denser living is more efficient in the long term, but it takes an upfront investment, and we just don't fund our councils. So they don't have the incentive to allow that sort of development. That's why so many councils have waited until a crisis time before they actually do this sort of thing. So we don't fund them, so they don't have the incentive to do it, and they just don't have the money to put in to all the things you need to do density well. I mean, you want want good shared spaces, you want good public transport and active transport around all these things. And so this is where, TOP's policy around funding local authorities would make a big difference, giving them back the GST on new builds, giving them more revenue to be able to do this sort of stuff.
People are blown away by that figure that you often quote, that local government has 40% of the infrastructure, but only 7% of the funding. So
yeah,
of course we have, dilapidated water pipes falling apart at the seams.
Yeah, it really isn't much of a surprise. And it's in these growing areas like Ōhāriu that we really see it first, because of course councils have to, just skimp on everything, skimp on everything basically, because they don't have the money to do it properly. And we want to do this stuff properly because it is going to be a worthwhile investment long term. We should be encouraging people to live in medium density housing. We should make it as nice as we possibly can, because this really is the future for a lot of New Zealand cities.
And I think that there is a bit of a generational, some of the people of our parents' generation are like, well, you've got to have your standalone house in your backyard and that sort of traditional sort of housing idea. But when you talk to, who you are, one of my volunteers in Ōhāriu, she's just like, where do you people expect me to live? I'm never going to be able to afford that. I just want somewhere to live. And we know that you can have medium density housing that is, a really great place to live and more affordable.
Yeah, absolutely. And more affordable also because of the lower transport costs, which is where we started on this particular question. So I will. I'm hitting my sign. Sorry. Let's move on. Okay. Another question from Alex. Ōhāriu is big. I have not seen you door knock in our area, but it's a large area. So what's your plan to reach everyone? Well, Alex, I can assure you that Jess is door knocking quite a lot, but I will let you answer that question, Jess.
Yeah, Alex, tell me, send me your address. I'll come and knock on your door. I mean, all electorates are big. They're all sort of the same size population wise.
60,000 people, most of them are, aren't they?
Pardon?
60,000 people.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
So I think there's something like 25,000 households or 20,000 households.
Yeah, it sounds right.
So I am not going to get to every door, particularly while we're in level 2. But the team and I are knocking on a lot of doors, and as soon as we're able to with the COVID situation, we will knock on doors, and I'm very happy to come and knock on your door. In fact, if you want to get a little group of people together, I will come to your house and we can hang and we can talk about policy and things. I will go to anything.
A little Hammond wear party, like a Tupperware party.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and there's multiple ways. I mean, obviously, Jess is using multiple ways to reach the. I mean, you're also doing the Johnsonville markets, although that's temporarily off too, is it?
It is. The Johnsonville markets are restarting once we're back at level 1.
Yeah.
So that is great news. So yeah, so we have been at the markets pretty much every week. We have big plans for kind of a street corner type meetings. So we had a lot of stuff lined up that we've had to put on hold. But as soon as we're safely able, we will do that. We'll be making phone calls, and I talk to a lot of people on Messenger and through Facebook.
I mean, social media is massive, right, in terms of being able to reach a large audience. And if you haven't seen Jessica's Facebook page, Alex, do check it out because she is quite prolific. All right. Okay. Next question. Some people asking about the UBI calculator. From Anna, does the UBI affect other income streams from the government, such as maternity leave? The simple answer there, Anna, is that we make sure that no one is worse off, but the UBI ends up being far more generous than things like paid parental leave. So don't you worry about that.
And on that one in particular, you know, if you are an at-home parent, so you're not on parental leave, you still get the UBI, which is amazing for, you know, symbolically amazing for rewarding that unpaid work that at-home parents do, but also because we know that half of families with a young child experience at least a year of poverty. And you know, look, if you've had a baby, you know what it's like. You, at the same time as you lose your income, your expenses massively go up at a time when you really need to be able to, you know, afford good food, need to be able to have your house warm and stuff. You know, that money is going to make a lot of difference to a lot of people with young children.
This one's a bit of a economic question from Lester, so I'll probably answer it, Jess, but feel free to chime in. If
I have a graduate diploma in economics, Geoff. I'll have.
Oh, you do? Oh, sorry about that. Wow, gosh, you kept that one quiet. Hi both, would you favour certain sectors as we rebuild our economy? For example, are we going to try and rebuild tourism, milk, education, or is this a chance to build up tech, manufacturing, green industries? So our innovation policy talks, Lester, a little bit about this. The analogy I like to use is like our sports funding. So if you don't know much about our Olympic sports funding, if you're an incredible athlete like you know, like Valerie Adams, the shot putter, for example, of course, you get supported through our Olympic funding. But in terms of the long-term investment we make in our Olympic sports, building infrastructure, putting research, you know, effort into research, putting effort into, you know, building up and picking talent early and making sure that we have a constant stream of talent coming through. Our Olympic funding focuses on rowing, yachting, and cycling. And those sorts of, that sort of analogy works quite well for what we want to do for our innovation sector. It basically saying, absolutely, we want to support good ideas where they exist, and you know, our innovation policy for them is much more about the entrepreneurship, the commercialization side of that, because at the moment we spend a lot on coming up with new ideas and then we don't do anything with them and they end up getting bought and taken overseas. But we actually do want to see a real attempt at making New Zealand world class in a few areas where we really can have you know, really can have that world class status. And there needs to be a process that goes through to select those sectors, but our suggestion is, you know, niche manufacturing, particularly in the health sector. I think we have a strength in the digital space, and lastly, you know, adding value to our existing primary sector exports. That's kind of our starting point for that. Do you have anything you want to jump on there, Jess? It's kind of a innovation.
Yeah, no, we're good on this.
Okay. Next one's for you, though. Hi, Jessica. What would you say has been the most heartwarming story you've come across while being out on the campaign trail?
Wow. The most heartwarming story. Can I have a second on this one?
Yeah, sure.
The most heartwarming story on the campaign trail. Actually, no, I do have one thing, and it's actually about our volunteers who, when we did the so with hoardings, the different city councils have different rules, but basically you're allowed to start. It was you know, Friday night midnight you're allowed to start, and there must have been what, 6 or 8 of us, I suppose, who started at midnight putting the hoardings up so that we would get the best spot. And actually we had a good time, and then we started losing our minds because we finished at about 4:30 in the morning. But I mean, that was one time where I was just like, man, you people are amazing. But I hope she won't mind me naming her, but Barbara, how old are you? I think you might have said she's probably a bit younger than my mum. I feel like she might be in her late 60s or early 70s, up with us all night, wielding like an axe and a hammer, like a boss. Yeah, incredible. And showing young Harry, you know, how to bash in a steak. Like, these people are incredible.
Yeah, wonderful. Awesome. Okay, so from that heartwarming story to a bit of a darker question from Laura. COVID is not going to be the only disruptive thing in our lifetime. Totally agree with that, Laura. We also have global warming, pollution, lack of recycling services. Well, yeah, I mean, a need to move to a circular economy is what you're saying. Tech disruption to jobs, absolutely. Artificial intelligence and automation predicted to take 15% of jobs in the next 10 years. How do you see us as a society developing the resilience to deal with all of these challenges, in addition to measures like the UBI? Well, firstly, let's just reflect briefly on the UBI and how it helps deal with those challenges, because you know that really is the point of the UBI, to help people move in and out of work. As Jess was saying, periods where you might be raising kids. I think, isn't that the stat, Jess, that half of families that have a child under 5 experience at least a year in poverty?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is just staggering. I mean, it's pretty clear that families with little kiddies are the most under pressure group in New Zealand. And you know, it's pretty obvious why, right? Because it's difficult to have 2 parents working during that time. I mean, there's just so much going on. So yeah, the great advantage of a UBI is that it allows people to, you know, gives people some basic certainty in their lives while they're doing different things, moving in and out of work, retraining, starting a business, all that sort of stuff. But on top of that, Jess, how do we build the resilience to deal with these challenges?
Honestly, this is, I think, TOP's biggest strength, is that we don't just put band-aids on the one problem, you know, that's most that's loudest, that's right in front of us. Like, everything we do is looking at the country and saying, okay, what are the biggest, most foundational issues that we need to deal with? And we get those foundations as strong as we can. You know, whether the UBI gives us a great base of resilience, dealing with this massive hole in our tax system, looking at what's going on with water, looking at what's going on with justice. We see these massive problems, and we deal to them. And every time we deal with one of these problems, we make our whole country stronger and more resilient. So I think a strength we have is that we're not really interested in the 3-year electoral cycle. You know, quick wins and low-hanging fruit, we can leave that to the other parties. We know they're going to be okay at the sort of scrambling at that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, yes. So we want to fix these foundations, and a strong foundation is what we need to deal with all of the challenges coming our way.
And I mean, right now, that housing thing, you know, rings particularly true, Jess. You know, I mean, how many people have taken up this, what they're calling a mortgage holiday, which isn't a mortgage holiday. That debt is still piling up. It's really just a deferral of that debt, and you know, that can't go on forever.
Yeah.
We have some of the most expensive housing in the world. We have some of the biggest debt in the world because of that really expensive housing, and that really makes us not resilient. And I'm really encouraged by our farming sector, which 3 years ago was in a pretty precarious situation in terms of debt levels and crazy land prices. And it seems like land prices have come down over the last few years, and they've been working to get their debt levels down too, which is really, really promising sign there. But we've got to do the same with housing over an extended period. It's going to take a long time to deflate this bubble that we've created, and to do that without popping it, because if you pop that bubble, then you can destroy the banking system and potentially our economy at the same time. So absolutely, we've got to get resilience, and we've got to do it. We've got to start immediately, because it takes a long time to rebuild that resilience up when we're starting from such a precarious situation. The other thing I would say around global warming and things like that is that there are lots of win-wins that we can do that will prepare us for a warmer world and reduce our emissions at the same time. And again, I come back to energy efficiency, getting our cities denser around our public and active transport networks, encouraging cycling and walking and public transport, all that sort of stuff, which is again good for our back pocket and good for the environment at the same time. And lastly, planting our erosion prone land. We're gonna have to prepare for the next cyclone bowler, because there's going to be plenty more of those coming, and all of that erosion prone land we've got up particularly in the central North Island and eastern North Island needs to be planted pretty quickly. Yeah, so lots to do for sure to improve our resilience. Next question, something a little bit cheerier here, perhaps. Anywhere. What's your view on returning mortgage lending to government hands? Private banking has contributed to the increase in house prices. If you've watched Mind the Gap, etc. I'm not sure that it's been private banking. I think it's our tax system that's caused the problem there. New Zealand does have. We could regulate our banks better than we have in the past, for sure. When you look at places like Germany, they've had lots of good lending restrictions for a long time, and we've only recently brought those in, and then we got rid of them as soon as COVID came along, because we didn't want house prices to drop. So yeah, we could definitely regulate our banks better, but I'm not sure that we need to return it all to government hands. Here's a question for you from Ben. Why not target the UBI, Jess?
Oh, because of the U. So a universal basic income is universal. So I assume the question is, why not target it to the people who need it most? Well, it wouldn't be a universal basic income. That would be a targeted income. That would be something that you would have to claw back when people start earning, and then we have the poverty traps again. Plus, it's really inefficient. Like, one of the great things about the UBI is we can save billions, including in administration costs, from all these people having to pry into your business to see how much you're earning for how long and from where. So universal basic income gets rid of the poverty trap. It's way more efficient, rewards unpaid work. It's just better.
Interesting you're talking about people prying into your lives, Jess, because I know that some of the bits of our welfare system around relationships are probably, a one thing that tend to get you riled up in terms of the intrusiveness on that sort of stuff. Do you want to talk about that for a bit?
Yeah, I mean, what is it? Have you been sleeping with somebody for a matter of a few weeks, basically, suddenly it becomes the government's business. You're obliged to tell them if you're living with someone, not just the flatmate, but they really, they need to know about the sex. It's financial interdependence. Anyway, look, but basically, work and income really has to get right up in your business if you're going to get a benefit from them that is conditional. So for people who value their privacy, which I think we all do, universal is better. It's also just far better for a whole bunch of reasons for benefits to be individualized. So if you're in a couple, or if you're in a platonic relationship, or if you're not in a relationship, the money goes to each individual. And one of the reasons it is much better is because women in particular can end up in situations of financial abuse where a partner can control their access to money, which makes it harder for them to leave an abusive relationship, harder to have any kind of independence. Financial abuse is a really big problem in New Zealand.
Question from Rachel. Hey Jessica, have you watched any of the Avengers movies? And if so, what would your favorite female character be?
Okay, hang on a minute. I don't really dig superhero-y type movies in general. However, we watched Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel, yeah, with Brie Larson. Yeah.
Watched that a couple of nights ago.
Wow, cool. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. I can answer that question.
Yes, you can. I have a feeling you'd like the Scarlet Witch as well, but that's a whole.
And vaguely in that. Oh God, the nerds are going to come for me, man. But oh, geez, Joker's girlfriend.
Oh, Harley Quinn.
My 9-year-old is obsessed with Harley Quinn.
Oh, right. Well, see, now you're crossing over into DC here.
I know. This is why I was like, I was aware I was aware.
It's a different universe. Yeah.
However, we do. I am forced to absorb, consume some of these sorts of things, and
now all the comments on the live stream are going to descend into a DC versus Marvel meltdown. Batman's the best, but Marvel's got the most complete universe. So you're both amazing. Everyone's amazing. Question from Neil: what involvement does the Morgan family have in Top today, Jess?
Zilch. Can I tell? So I have not spoken to. Oh, should I say this?
I don't know. I don't know what you're going to say.
I know you don't. I don't know. I know. I must preface this by saying I am very, very grateful to Gareth for starting Top, and I very much admire his vision. I'm pleased he's in the world. He wants to make the world a better place. And I have not seen him since election night 2017. I had not seen him since election night 2017 until I saw him in like an appliance store the other week, and I ran out, so I didn't have to talk to him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I just didn't know what to say. I haven't seen him for 3 years, and he and I have not always seen eye to eye. And I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. I can't see any of you. I kind of forgetting that this is going live. My filter is misfunctioning.
No, that's good. It's good. We're an open and transparent. We're open and transparent party. That's
so sorry. The answer is zero involvement.
Zero involvement. Yes, we no longer have our sugar daddy. Is the answer to that? Okay. Looks like we've got time for a couple more questions. Let's there's some pretty amusing questions in here, and a big debate about the UBI calculator. I think one thing I need to get across about our UBI policy is that, excuse me, based on the experiments overseas, the UBI policy will pay for itself simply with a 33% flat tax rate. So based on what's happened overseas, we'll see lots of benefits. You see reduced bureaucracy. You see people who are on benefits, they are more likely to work because you don't have that welfare trap, as Jess mentioned. You see people, if they're not working, they're more likely to get more training. If people get more training, they get a higher income, and everyone benefits from that as well. There's lots of these sorts of benefits that filter through from a UBI. And when you add those up, it basically makes our UBI proposal fiscally neutral, so it pays for itself. So we only have this asset tax here because there's a lot of people discussing this asset tax. The property tax that we're proposing really is a backup plan for if the UBI isn't quite fully self-funding. And if we don't need that asset, that property tax, our goal is simply, as I said before, to tax property the same as other investments. So you could tax property a little bit more, and you could use that money to reduce the tax rates on other investments so that you don't have this crazy incentive to put all of your money into housing. So that's basically what Germany does, and Germany's had flat house prices for the last 30 years. So it is possible we can restore housing affordability if we're prepared to change our planning system and our tax system. Any other questions through here? Any thoughts on Oranga Tamariki, Jess? I mean,
Oh, yeah. Oh, look, I read, I think it was a report from the Children's Commissioner recently. So they interviewed a bunch of mums who have had interactions with Oranga Tamariki, and it'll just break your heart. I was in a debate with Tracy Martin, who's the Minister for Children, so she's responsible for Oranga Tamariki, a few weeks ago, and she did say that a lot of those stories predate the current chief executive and her involvement, and that things are better. That's what I would say if I were her as well. So I don't know how much better things are, but they have a very, very, very long way to go. These stories are tragic, and I do understand that when social workers see children in unsafe situations, there is a real I can totally understand why people just want to get the babies out of there, but we know that the outcomes from state care are so horrific that it's supporting children in vulnerable families to be with their family, their whānau, or someone with a family connection is pretty much always better. So we need to find a way of supporting those families to stay together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy how many people who are in prison came from state care, or grew up in state care. It's I mean, there's anyone who thinks that state care is a better option needs to see those statistics. And I mean, I'm personally very open to the views on the Māori Party here. I mean, I think I'm a big believer that communities should have a greater say over the services that impact them. And if Māori communities can do a better job of managing that process, then all power to them. I think we should certainly be giving communities that opportunity to show that they can do a better job. One last question. Oh, sorry. Yes. Yeah.
I was just going to say, but just reading these stories from these families is having people in a situation where they feel completely powerless. It's really, really crushing. So I was just going to total what you were saying about giving people some agency and responsibility over their own lives. Just, better for your soul.
Absolutely. And also, these sorts of community organizations know their community better than government does. So, there's a lot to be said for that, for these sorts of really on the ground services. And that kind of takes us full circle back to that resilience question as well that we were talking about before. I think, building community can do a lot in that respect. And, that's part of TOP's approach to improving mental health too, is that mental health shouldn't begin in, mental health services shouldn't begin in the DHB, they should begin in communities. And community groups play a massive job in giving people belonging and giving people identity, which that's the vaccination for mental health, right? That's the preventative side of mental health. One last question then, Jess, for you to finish on, just to come back to the UBI. What happens for people that currently receive benefits more than $250 a week?
So they can still get those. Our policy is that no one is going to be worse off than they are now. The UBI is set about the same as the job seekers benefit. There are some people, I am very, very confident, who are on a little bit more than the UBI, who will decide to save themselves the headache of dealing with work and income, and will take the UBI and find casual, part-time, whatever kind of work they can do, which they will not be, they will not lose through abatements, and will avoid it. So there'll probably be savings there as well. But the main answer to your question is no one is worse off. People can still get topped up to those current benefit levels. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the real winners from the UBI really are that group of working poor, the people that do work a bit, and because of that don't lose their benefit when they work. Yeah. Awesome. Great. Hey, well, thanks so much, Jess, for your time, and good luck. I mean, I'll no doubt see you around the traps, but good luck for your ongoing campaign in Ōhāriu. And I plan to come up there. Maybe actually I should put aside September the 19th in my diary when all these when everyone else is descending on Ōhāriu. Let's make a party of it, a weekend of it up in Ōhāriu. Can you maybe we should rent out a scout hall or something and have a sleepover?
Maybe we should. Before we go, I just want to do a little Ōhāriu call to action, which is that if you have any time or money that you can contribute to the Ōhāriu cause, or if you are in Ōhāriu or know anyone in Ōhāriu, can you just send them my way? Just say, just check her out. It would make a really big difference. The word of mouth thing is incredibly important for us in TOP, because we do not get the airtime or the funding of other parties. So talk about it.
How can people get in touch with you, Jess?
You can get in touch with me, Jessica at top.org.nz, or through Facebook is probably the best ways.
Awesome. And your Facebook page is?
Jessica, top Jessica Hammond. Look on the TOP website, and there is a link to my Facebook page there.
Nice. Okay, cool. And I just want to say, Jess, I think you're doing a fantastic job. Keep it up.
Thanks, mate. Right back at you.
Kia ora.
And thanks to the tech team.
Always.
Yeah.